Hey Heidi, how are you doing? Welcome.
How are you?
I'm really good. I'm so pleased that you're here. This is something that we've not done before, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's good. We should have done it years ago. I don't know why we haven't done it before now.
Well, I know I've only had a podcast for a year, so maybe that's what it is.
That wasn't top of your agenda.
Yeah, maybe I should have done it ages ago. But just to give a bit of insight, we've known each other for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah,
I can't even remember how many years it's been.
it's at least 8 years.
8 years. It might be even longer.
It could be.
It might be even longer. So 8 years, we've been friends, we've been business buddies, all the way through that time. And
Yeah.
I can't remember how we became friends, but we kind of became just kindred spirits, didn't we? Because we've got a lot in common. And every so often we catch up over a cuppa. I've got my cuppa now. Have you got a cuppa?
No, I haven't. I slipped up there, didn't I?
Did you
I have just had one though.
Oh, it's all right then. So we chat over a cuppa or we message each other just to keep each other going. So I'm really giddy about you being here. So everybody can learn just how amazing you are. So the first question, the way that I always start every single interview is, where do you want to start, Heidi?
Well, as I'm 57 now, I probably don't want to go right back to the very beginning. We have got a finite amount of time. Probably start with what brought me to doing what I do and to make that shift from my corporate career to being self-employed, I guess, really, because I had quite a reasonable 15-year corporate career as a health and safety professional. But I sort of started in that world when health and safety was very much around the spirit of health and safety, and quite quickly over a period of time it changed. Something fundamental changed in it, where it became about compliance and quite frankly covering backsides and ticking boxes, which really wasn't my thing at all. But what it did show to me, much to my amazement, was that I actually am really interested in people, when I never thought I was a people person at all. So back in the middle of the 90s, alongside my health and safety career, I trained as a hypnotherapist, and kind of had that going as a bit of a side hustle for a few years, and really sort of got to appreciate how wonderful people can be, and how helping them deal with their challenges can really unlock and help them to blossom, and really sort of recognize their own potential. So that kind of went on as a side hustle for a few years, and then via a convoluted route I was made redundant and ended up working for the Environment Agency as a consultant, and was doing a lot of stuff around community engagement on the flood defence schemes. And again, it became all about people and helping people to feel empowered, to have a voice. And that was really challenging. It's not something that I would ever want to go back to, because it mainly involved standing there being shouted at for a lot of the time. Fortunately, I'm quite resilient on that front. But I was really lucky that the Environment Agency gave me 9 months notice that my contract was coming to an end. So it gave me that opportunity to say, right, okay, what do I really want to do now? So I decided that I wanted to jump fully into supporting people on their development journey. So in 2006, I trained as a coach, to kind of sit alongside my hypnotherapy and NLP. And I trained with an organisation that gave me a wonderful transformational model to work with, which also meant that I wasn't kind of fixed to working in one particular area either, because although I was quite keen to escape that sort of world of commerce and industry, etc., I really quickly missed it. So my practice when I first started out was very much around personal coaching and business coaching. So a lot around the crossover, the link between the two, because we were kind of just getting to that point where people were starting to openly say that we no longer come to work and leave our personal lives on the doorstep. there was much more of an acknowledgement that there was a massive crossover between the two. And I honestly don't know how we got away with avoiding it for as many years as we did. But hey, that's where we were. So for me, being able to support somebody through the growth and development of their business and also make sure that was in balance with their personal life was just really valuable, because I do believe that we work to live, not live to work. But it's very easy to get sucked in the wrong direction when you're passionate about your business. So that was all going along really nicely for a couple of years, and then coaching became much more popular, and lots of people were suddenly sort of putting themselves out there as coaches. And I just thought, you know, it's time to do something different. And I started getting all sorts of weird random things dropping into my inbox and popping up on Facebook, etc., about working with horses and how horses can support people. And I've always been totally horsey, never had my own, but would go and, you know, talk to the passing police horse or whatever. I'm just, as a kid, used to spend every moment I could at the riding stables to earn a free ride, but could never ever justify having my own in my own head. So then when these things started popping into my inbox and onto my timeline about working with horses to support people, and it was all in the States, so I was kind of looking at it and thinking, oh, that would be a nice thing to do. And then it became, no, that's an important thing to do. And then it became, no, that's something I need to do. And then it became something I want to do. And then all of a sudden it was available in the UK as a training program as well. So right at the start of 2010, went off, did my training, wasn't happy with the training, so did some more training with somebody else. And that's just led me on this amazing journey that's taken me from no horses to 4 horses. And I have to say, my husband didn't even know I was horsey when we got married. So that's been a big journey for him. And yeah, here I am now with 4 horses running a social enterprise, Glint, where we, the enterprise side of our work, the commercial side, is supporting individuals and organizations on their kind of their development journey, so leadership, team development, workplace well-being, things like that. And then that goes to support the work that we do and partly subsidize the work that I do, supporting people with mental health and well-being challenges, sort of teenagers and adults who are struggling with mental health and well-being.
Amazing. What a journey, right? That's a good place to start, if any. Amazing. So there's loads of things that I kind of want to go back and unpick, if that's all right.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the first thing is, right at the very beginning, when you were a health and safety professional in your corporate career, and you said that you started to think about what you wanted to do. How did you go about that process? You know, just sitting down and go, okay, I've had this career, I've been in corporate, and those of us, I had a corporate background as well. You can get really cocooned in that corporate kind of bubble, can't you? Yeah. And so when you escape, it can feel like, you know, when there's so much choice, what is it that I want now? So how did you make that decision to go from health and safety to, I know you walked into hypnotherapy and you explored hypnotherapy and coaching. How did you go through the process of actually deciding what you wanted to do?
I'm not sure that all of it was a conscious decision. I think a lot of it was wearing away in my subconscious. So even in my health and safety career, I found that I was doing a lot of stuff around empowering staff members who might have been sort of lower down in the organizational structure and might be questioning whether they should do something just because their manager told them that they should. And so I was doing work around empowerment with them through that health and safety lens, but then seeing how people then start to take responsibility for themselves and their well-being, just in that really narrow field. And it was obviously triggering something in me that was leading that to be more and more important, to the extent that I'd always had an inkling that I fancied to have my own business, but had never really known what I wanted that to be about. And then it just started to form in my mind that actually this whole thing about empowering people and getting people to recognize their own value and skills and contribution and just general wonderfulness really became something really important for me. So it was kind of something that grew, but it grew to a point where I couldn't ignore it any longer.
Yeah, and I think this is really, really powerful, because you mentioned that obviously you were getting these signs, weren't you, of come and work with horses, and it was something that you, by your own admission, went from, so this is something that's nice to do, to something that I need to do, to something that I actually really want to do, I can't not do now. And that in itself is a really great, powerful journey. So how long did that process take, considering you were already a horsey person?
That was actually, it's funny, I can remember the exact time when I announced that that's what I was going to do, because three friends and I, who we all started our businesses at the same time in Huddersfield, and we became quite close friends. One of them is still my just about my best friend now. And we used to get together. We formed this little group where we looked at marketing. We called ourselves the Marketing Coven. We were the witches of Huddersfield in our marketing coven. And I really clearly remember that I'd got to this point where I was feeling frustrated with just doing sort of therapy and coaching that was making a difference, but I felt that there was something more. It wasn't really fulfilling for me. And I'd started, I've always been a bit creative, and I'd started making silver jewelry. And we were having this conversation in our coven about where we were going next with our businesses and our lives and how things were going to go. And we'd written down what we thought we were going to do. And I'd written down that I was going to be this amazing silver jewelry artist. And so we all talked around what we were going to do. And when it got to me, I said, I've written down that I'm going to be this amazing silver jewelry creator, but I'm not. I want to go and do this. And it was just, I couldn't deny it any longer. And they all sat there and laughed at me and came up with all sorts of names for my new venture, really patronizing things, horsing around with Heidi, with being the standout one. But it was just, it got to a point where I couldn't contain it any longer. And I know that's the first time that I said, this is what I'm going to do. And probably that was over maybe a 3-month period from it suddenly appearing really frequently in my timeline and inbox to me saying, right, this isn't something I can run away from and deny any longer. Didn't know how I was going to do it. So that would have been in probably November, December 2009. And by the end of December, I was booked on the course to start January, straight after Christmas.
Yeah, I love that you said, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but that didn't matter. You know, so often we get caught up in the how, don't we? And we worry about, well, how's it going to happen? Have I got everything that I need? But that's not up to us. You know, we need to just declare it, as you said. You said you announced it, you couldn't contain it any longer. And it was in that moment that you literally just put that flag in the sand and went, this is me, this is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important, isn't it, for anybody listening, that if you've got an inkling of something, you need to just claim it, put your flag in the sand, announce it, declare it, and say, this is it. Yeah. Even if, and I know you, when you declared it to your coven, to your friends, that you said they said they had some patronizing names and there was just laughing about it, and they might not have understood the seriousness of what you were doing.
No.
But even if sometimes you get people around you that just I don't understand, and that's okay.
I still have those people around me. And, you know, to a degree, to a huge degree, I didn't really know what I was saying either. I didn't know what a powerful journey that was going to take me on. I didn't know that it wasn't going to just be Heidi being fanciful about having an excuse to be with horses, because I didn't know what it was going to look like. I certainly didn't know the journey it was going to take me on.
But look at you now. So here we are. How many years has it been?
12.
Right, 12 years. So I remember, and might have been around the time that we first met, actually. I came on one of your sessions. I think you were doing an introductory session, and I think maybe you only had 2 horses at the time, or maybe I can't remember. Can you remember?
Possibly. Yeah, because I think you've been twice, haven't you? I think you've had 2 experiences with me. One was it would have been a CIPD event.
Yeah.
And then you also came up to Bolster Moor, I think, didn't you? And did a session up there with me with
I don't know whether I did that. I can't remember that last one, but I certainly can remember the first one, which was, I think you had Billy, which was your smaller pony. Was it Billy? Have I just made that name up?
No, I did have Billy. If I'd got Billy, then I had 3 horses at the time. So Gertie was the little one, the naughty.
Oh, Gertie was the little one, yes. And I don't know where I definitely remember Billy.
Gertie and Zara.
Yeah. So I came on this session, and maybe I did do 2, and I can't remember the other one. Maybe it'll come back to me. But I was talking about this with a client the other day, because I was a coach back. I've always been a coach, but I got invited by you to come along for an introductory session. And I don't think I understood just how powerful it was going to be for me as a coach in terms of enhancing my development. Because when you go on your coaching qualification, you do the standard qualification, but this one took me to a different level. So I just want to, let's just talk about the experience with horses, because obviously you work with horses. We've not actually talked about what you do, but you work with horses. And tell us a little bit more about why horses are so powerful in terms of your work.
Okay, so the underlying premise is that horses are incredibly emotionally intelligent. So whenever we're with them, their first thoughts are always around how we make them feel. Do they feel safe? Are we going to eat them? They're prey animals, so emotional intelligence is how they keep themselves safe. So they're constantly reading the energy in the environment around them. They also don't spend all their time in their heads. If they did, they would be eaten by wolves and mountain lions. So they're listening to what their bodies are telling them all the time, rather than filtering everything through the process of their brain. So they respond very quickly, very immediately, and then they might go away and have a think about things afterwards, but that's where the fight, flight, freeze comes from, that they respond based on what their body is telling them about the situation they find themselves in, which makes them amazing learning partners for us, because they're giving us instant feedback about how we're performing around them. So they're kind of mirroring back to us how we're doing, how we're performing, the impact we're having on them, and conversely, the impact they're having on us and how that's making us respond, because it's really important that we acknowledge how we impact other people and how other people impact on us as well. So the horses are showing us that all the time, and every time we make a change or an adjustment based on what they've shown us, then they then show us how effective that has been.
Yeah, so you get that instant feedback.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I'm not a horsey person, I've never been one to go for horse riding lessons when I was little, and I appreciate horses and I really like them as animals, because I'm a massive animal lover. So I would go and pet a horse that was, if I saw one behind a fence and things, sometimes I'd go and say hello. but I might not gravitate towards a police horse, like I know you said that you did. I probably won't go that far. And I think I've been on a horse once at a school residential. So I just want to put that into context that it's not something that I was familiar with.
No.
Even though I'm a huge animal lover. So when I went, I didn't really know what to expect, but I understood about emotional intelligence, and I understood about the need to think about your own frequency, your own vibration, and your own energy, and how that was actually passing on to other people. Because as a human, we can feel it, right? We can. There's been loads of times, I'm sure, that we've been into a room and we can't quite connect with something, or something feels off about somebody, or the energy just feels brilliant, or it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so even if we don't understand the science behind it or how it's actually happening, we've all experienced it, right? And so I understood it from this perspective. But it really cemented that, because you're right, the horses give immediate feedback. And I remember, and I don't know whether you do, there was a lady on the session and she was maybe a little bit nervous, and the horses totally reacted to that. And they started running around a bit more. And I was lucky to be at one end of I don't know whether you call it a field, a paddock, I don't know the term.
Yeah, it was the paddock we were working in, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah,
a paddock. And I was fortunate to kind of be a little bit further away and just watching it play out and seeing just how when she changed her energy and her emotions, then the horses responded completely differently.
Yeah.
And this is something that I held dear to me throughout my entire coaching career, because I understand how important it is for me as a coach and a guide to watch out for my energy and watch out for that. And so let's dive into that a bit, because you mentioned emotional intelligence, and this is a phrase that gets bandied around a lot, doesn't it? And I kind of want to just delve into without going, I don't want to go into all theory and being too deep on this, but because I'm interested in how we can practically apply it, because I was lucky to work with you and your horses, but maybe we haven't got that opportunity, or maybe we can't get close to any animals. By the way, does it work with all animals? So I know I'm a dog person, but is it just horses would get this experience from?
No, but different animals will present differently depending on where they are, I guess, in the food chain. Yeah, so dogs, I'm a big dog lover, as you know. And dogs, they're the hunters, they're the predators, they're the ones that would be going out to eat the horses. So they're coming from a completely opposite perspective. And whilst there are some similarities in terms of sort of hierarchies and social support and things like that, there are also huge differences. And yes, dogs are emotionally intelligent, but it's kind of, they're not very honest a lot of the time. They know how to play us.
Yeah.
Your dog knows how to play you and make sure that you give it a treat by looking at you longingly, or it'll learn a trick with its paw or whatever. And not just yours, mine do the same, or did. And horses don't do that. They don't do that manipulation thing. They're much more genuine because they're more about their safety, whereas dogs are more about food. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad I asked that question, actually, because you're right. My dog completely plays me. Yeah, got me wrapped around his little paw. Anyway, going back to emotional intelligence, then let's talk about the practicalities of it. When we talk about emotional intelligence, what is it that we mean?
For me, I think it's really important to keep it simple, because you can go off on all sorts of scientific theories, but the simple way I like to look at it is around two areas. One is awareness of self and of others and our emotions, and then to take that into an acknowledgement that any emotion that we experience or that somebody else experiences generates energy, and that energy ripples out from us different frequencies for different moods, different emotions. And so that's what we're feeling. And it's that awareness, listening to what your body is telling you about the energy and the environment around you, rather than always being in your head.
Yeah, and that last bit is so key, isn't it? Just listening to your own body, checking in with what exactly is going on, rather than just being in your own head, as you say. So how do we do that practically? What can we do, especially in today's life? We're very busy. Most of us are really busy people. From the second we get up to the second we go to bed, we're kind of on this treadmill. And I was talking about this just today, actually, about creating space for yourself to get out of that, so that you can start to be a little bit more soul-centered, and start checking in. But what can we do to start stretching those muscles and teaching ourselves how to check in with how things are going, with not just us, but with what's around us as well?
And one of the things that I didn't do when I first started out with this work, but it was kind of, as my understanding of energy and emotional intelligence has grown over the years, one of the things that I think is really important is to acknowledge where you're at here and now before you go off to do something. So for example, when I work with my clients, before we go out to work with the horses, the very first thing we do, whether it's an individual or a group, is we stand with our eyes closed and I'll talk you through a body scan. So you're checking in with all the different parts of your body to see how everything's feeling, not in a judgmental way, just acknowledging what's going on. And by doing that, we start to recognize where different emotions rest in our bodies, because we experience different emotions in different parts of our body. So you might feel anxiety in your stomach. I might feel it as a fluttery feeling in my chest. You might feel joy in your heart. I might feel it as a tingling feeling in my hands. And so it's really important that each of us acknowledges where we experience those different emotions. And if we don't know what state our body is in here and now, then we can't detect those changes very readily. And it's really important, because with emotions like anxiety and excitement, for example, they're very, very similar. Some people say they're two sides of the same coin. They're very, very closely aligned and they've got a very similar frequency. But for the majority of people, if you listen to your body, one will appear in one place in your body and the other will appear somewhere else. That doesn't mean that they don't overwhelm and take over, but they will start somewhere, and it won't be the same place for each emotion. It won't be the same place for each person either. But until we become really aware of that, then it's hard for us to notice when changes happen as well.
Yeah. It's just about really getting familiar with yourself, isn't it? With the internal self. And I do something very similar that you do before you see you've got somebody come in, see a client come in. Is before I go see a client, usually whether it's I'm at home or whether I'm in the car just arriving there, I sit for a moment. I always give myself at least 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, and I sit and I do the same. I close my eyes and I go, okay, let's check in with where I am. And I also set an intention as well, set an intention for the session in terms of my role and bringing my best self to the table. But it's so important when you just do that, taking those, a snapshot of time. We've all got 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Even as I remember when my kids were little and I had everybody running around the house, we always had 5 minutes.
Yeah.
To just go, okay, where am I feeling everything? And sometimes it can feel all jumbled up, but when you start to really dissect it, you can feel it in certain parts of your body, can't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And for my clients, we do that before we then go out to work with the horses, because it might be that for one client, just the fact that I say, right, let's go out and meet the horses, could trigger something in them. For somebody else, it could be when they put the hand on the gate. For somebody else, it could be when they go through the gate. And then when they get to the horses, it could be another feeling altogether, and they'll feel differently with each horse. If we haven't taken that time to really check in with ourselves, then we don't we're not aware of those subtle changes. It just becomes an overwhelming thing.
Yeah, it just become a jumbled mess in
Yeah.
your body, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then it's hard to determine who or what is making you feel anything in particular, because it is just that big mess.
Yeah. I remember when I was going through my fear of my stage fright period a while back, a few years back, and I remember I was going to do some stand-up because it was part of my experiment that I created for myself to get out of this stage fright. And before I went on stage, I was the most terrified that I've ever been, ever. And I remember sitting there because I knew it was an experiment and I'd put myself in that situation. I did the same. I was sat on a bar stool in the middle of this comedy club, surrounded by people. And I was in the audience, like at the back of the room. I remember just sitting there for 5 minutes, drowning everybody out, going, okay, I'm feeling this here. I'm feeling my heart's beating fast, you know, it's pounding against my chest. Is it really pounding? No, actually it feels like it's just beating a little bit faster. Okay, so my breathing's a little bit, you know, faster. Okay, so let's just talk about that. Let's just analyze it. And by going through that fight, we only took 5 minutes. By going through that 5 minutes and piecing, taking out the jigsaw pieces of this puzzle, all of a sudden my fear just kind of evaporated, and I was able to do what I needed to do just with confidence then. But again, it just allowed me to take myself out and remove myself from the situation rather than become the fear.
Yeah, and for me, I think there are two elements to that as well. It's around, partly it's about saying, right, okay, how big is that really?
Yeah.
You know, how big or how extreme is that feeling really, and putting it into perspective. But also that 2 minutes, that 5 minutes that you've taken to focus on those different elements also takes your mind away from that overwhelming fear of the performance, the anxiety. So it's working on two levels, isn't it? It's kind of quantifying what's going on, but also taking your mind down a different avenue as well.
Absolutely, it just takes you out of that hole, doesn't it? The other thing that I remember, now that you've said this, is when I was going through this period, sat on this bar stool, and at the very end, once I'd finished going through all the different elements, I remember looking out to the audience and going, oh, they're just having a good time. They're just is. And so all of a sudden their energy, I picked up on their energy of just them having, you know, happiness and joy, and they're all on a night out and they were all there cheering everybody on. And that energy then replaced the energy that I was feeling inside. And it kind of did it twofold, where I checked in and then I started on the external, and I didn't do that bit consciously. It was just the next kind of step. So I want to talk about that.
It's a two-way street, isn't it? You know, everybody's energy is affecting everybody, and it's when those, you know, we each have a ripple of energy that goes out, and when our ripples coincide with somebody else's, it's like throwing a stone into a pond. When all those ripples coincide and come together, then it becomes something other than just ours. And so it kind of there's a synergistic effect, I suppose, really. I've never used that phrase.
I was going to say, that's an ace word. You're going to hear that word coming from both of us. Synergistic, it says. But you're absolutely right. We can think of ourselves all too often as lone entities, kind of doing our thing, but that's just not how it is at all. We're all connected. We're all got an energy. We've all got a frequency, and and vibration, and we're picking up on that all the time because we are just animals, you know.
And our personal frequencies are changing all the time, depending on what's going on for us, what our mood is. It's all energy, but it's different frequencies of energy, different vibrations.
Yeah. So it's we could talk about this forever. The one thing I kind of want to just pick up on is, you know, those moments where you walk into a room, and I'm thinking networking, or you're going into maybe an interview or something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone that just feels a bit different, and you're meeting different people, and there's that element of pressure on you. And you know those moments where you're just not feeling it, or you just feel out of alignment, or you might be picking up on somebody else's energy. What can we do to recalibrate in that moment, you know, so that we sorting out our own side of the street, you know, cleaning our own side of the street before, rather than just thinking, oh, it was that person, oh, I didn't like that person. You know, how can we sort ourselves out first?
I think being able to determine what is ours and what is somebody else's is really, and again, that comes back to that quick body scan, I suppose, isn't it? You know, just taking that moment to take a deep breath and think how much of this is them and how much is me. And when you can acknowledge what's yours and what's somebody else's, that then puts you in a really powerful position to be able to change it. Particularly if you know and believe, as we do, that our energy impacts on other people just as much as theirs does on us. So we have the power to go into a room that feels uncomfortable and change that energy.
And
but
we've all done it.
That awareness.
Yeah. And we do this all the time, probably without even realizing it. And that's the beauty of it. Once you start becoming aware of your own energy and how you're feeling, and having that just 5 minutes or 2 minutes to check in, we're then now able to influence, impact, change the mood of the room, you know, even the conversation or the situation, you know, that you've had with one or other person. It becomes a more positive experience, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I mean, you could take it in the other direction and it could be a really negative experience.
Oh, yeah, you could.
But it's that it's within our realm to do something about it. And that's one of the things I love about working with the horses, because before I started working with the horses, there was always a lot of stuff around fake it till you make it. But you can't fake it with the horses. So you've got to be real with it. If you go in with the horses and you're faking it, they go with the energy that they can feel that's inside. So if you're not being congruent, if your body language is saying one thing but your energy is saying another, your energy is what they go with. And I think that's a really powerful message in terms of, why do we need to fake it? If we can get in touch with our energy and emotions and recognize how powerful they are, we don't actually need to fake it. We can make it real. Because we can influence those situations, those people around us, by managing our own energy and emotions.
You're absolutely right. It just takes a little bit of practice, because these are muscles that we just haven't stretched enough yet.
Right, yeah.
So you're absolutely right. This is a learned behaviour. We can all learn how to do this. It doesn't have to be, oh no, I'm not, you know, I'm not confident enough to do that. All right, you know, we can label ourselves in so many different ways. But if we give ourselves permission to go, okay, that's how I've behaved in the past, or that's how I've reacted to things in the past, I can learn to change that. I can learn to control it, or just be more in tune and connected with our own energy. So,
and I'm sure that you'll have experienced the same thing, where you might have been going into, I don't know, a meeting, or going to have a chat with somebody who you don't necessarily feel all that positive about going to see, because you've had a bad experience with them in the past, and you've allowed that to continue because you've bought into that negative interaction as well. And just by saying, right, okay, I'm going to do it differently this time, and I'm going to go in with a different attitude. It doesn't matter what attitude that person brings into the mix. The fact that you've changed your attitude, you've changed your emotion, your energy, they can't continue with their old pattern, because it takes two to make the pattern continue. And if you've changed it, then it can't happen.
Yeah. And it's just really valuable to know that. It's just about setting that intention before you go into that room or into that situation, and think, okay, this is what I want to bring to the party. This is the end result that I want. And not the you know, whether it's success or failure end result. Is what we're talking about is, this is the relationship that you want to have with somebody. the experience you want to have with somebody.
Mm.
And that's so powerful.
It is incredibly powerful.
Yeah. So let's look at some practical tips that somebody can use straight away today. If they're listening to this, they go, right, we're going to have a go. I'm interested in this. What can they do? What do you reckon?
One of the things that I find really useful, and it was a technique, it's a hypnotherapy and NLP technique, but I've kind of adapted it for clients working with the horses, but just because that's where we're at the time, is to find something to anchor to that takes you back to a comfortable space when you might be feeling uncomfortable. So at the moment, I'm working with somebody who's dealing with a lot of anxiety about particular situations. So what I've had her do, and I'll talk about what we've done with the horse, and then we can see how you can do it much more simply, is have her place her hands on the horse, time her breathing with the horse's breathing, and feel the warmth of the horse's hair and body under her hands, and feel the horse's energy helping hers to come down, and sort of really getting in touch with how that feels under her hands, so that sensation becomes an anchor for her. And then when she goes into whatever the stressful situation is, she takes herself back to that feeling of the warmth and the breathing and the movement under her hands. And so that becomes an anchor that immediately takes her back to that place of quiet and calm. And we can do that with anything. We can do it with
let's see here. That's a great anchor, isn't it? You know?
With something to warm your hands round. Yeah. It's good if you can do it with something that's physically with you all the time. So the quickest and easiest way to do it is just doing something really simple, like, you know, putting your finger and thumb together and squeezing, and you know, you can use that to program all sorts of responses in your body. I used to years ago, when I was a biker chick, I developed a bit of anxiety because I kept dropping my bike. It kept falling over and I wasn't strong enough to pick it up, and so it became a bit of a thing that I was worrying about dropping my bike, so I dropped my bike. And so I started working on that I programmed my mind so that if I started feeling those anxious feelings coming on, I developed an anchor where if I squeezed my hand into a fist, then I filled my body with confidence and positivity. So that was just squeezing my hand. I didn't need to have a thing with me, and it worked, and I got past that block, and then I stopped worrying about dropping my bike, and so then I stopped dropping my bike. So it doesn't have to be that you take yourself off to some, you know, land of wonder in a field with a horse. Just do it. You can just do it here and now as we're sat talking. It's just creating that trigger, that anchor for yourself.
Yeah. And again, it's so powerful. We do this with my clients as well. And sometimes if you're wearing a ring, you might just want to twizzle your ring, or just, you know, you might want to rub your hands together. It could be anything. It could be anything. But so powerful. So that's tip number one. What do you reckon for number two? Something practical that we can do.
I really like the power of breath. Just taking the time to focus on your breathing and to play with your breathing. So if you're breathing at I don't know, 5 inhalations a minute, then turn it up or turn it down, so that you can really show yourself how in control you can be of your body's functioning. And when we control our breathing, we're also then controlling our heart rate, because the two are really closely linked together. So playing around with controlling your rate of breathing has a big impact on your heart rate, and our heart rate is one of the first things that we generally notice if we're feeling anxious about something. So being able to turn your breathing back then turns back your heart rate, and so then everything starts to settle and slow. So again, a really quick and easy thing that we can all do.
Yeah, we can literally do that while we're sat on the sofa watching TV, or putting the kids to bed or wherever.
Yeah.
Just being more aware of our breath, rather than and I think also being, again, I'm going to use the same word, intentional about our breath, because sometimes we're just breathing. Obviously we need to breathe, but it's happening subconsciously all the time.
Yeah.
And there's so much power in just taking a few deep breaths.
Absolutely, yeah. And there are lots of our body functions that we can't control. Like, we can't actually control the speed at which our heart beats, but the speed at which our heart beats is determined by how much oxygen we've got coming into our bodies and things like that. So if we control our heart rate, sorry, the secondary effect is in controlling our heart rate. You can't just directly go to your heart and say, right, slow down, heart, but you can control your breathing and help your heart to become a slower beat. And then all those sensations of sort of your heart racing and the adrenaline pumping around your body, etc., they all subside just from you controlling your heart rate.
Yeah, and
your breath rate.
Your breathing. I'm so pleased that we can't control our heart rate and go, oh, heart, I just want to just slow you down. For that, I wouldn't be able to trust myself. Where does that end? I'm like, kidney, I want you to just do this. Okay, what about tip number 3 then?
Oh, tip number 3. Where to go with that one? One of the things that I really like to do with my clients is, and it isn't necessarily as a process, it's not a quick experience, but you can do it quickly if you want and need to. So one of the exercises that we quite often do is to just go away and sit in a space and either think about or write down all the things that you can see, hear, any thoughts and any feelings that you're experiencing. And it's a really good way of getting present and not being sucked down a dark alley. So you can do it as a whole exercise where you go and sit for 15 minutes and write all those things down and don't get sucked into the thoughts about the things that you're writing down. Or you can just do it really quickly and notice one thing that you can see, one thing that you can hear, one thing that you can smell, one thing that you can taste, or a thought or a feeling. And just by doing that, you're bringing yourself back to the here and now, rather than sort of getting sucked into and drawn into that pattern of anxiety or worry or fear.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And again, that's something that we can do anywhere.
Yeah.
So before maybe you're doing a presentation, or before you're going into a job interview, or before you're pitching yourself to a new client, it's something that you can really do to centre yourself.
Yeah.
So, fantastic tips. Thank you. That's so good. Last question then, Heidi. I ask everybody this question, and you are not getting off the hook. What have you got a book that you could recommend to everybody that's impacted you?
Yeah, there's a particular book that I love, and it's not a really deep intellectual book, but it really resonates with me and what I'm about and my work, etc. And it's a book by Charlie Mackesy, and it's quite popular at the moment, although I've been aware of it for a lot of years. And it's called The Boy. I always get these animals the wrong way around. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it's a beautiful book. It's got, Charlie Mackesy's actually an artist, so it's got some beautiful, just really simple illustrations of the 4 parties in his book, and then with really simple messages around being kind to others and yourself, and having courage, and asking for help. Just really simple messages that are around, for me, what are really important but simple values to bring to life and to share with others as well. It's about respect and honesty and truth, but in a really simple and beautiful way.
It's things that we just need to be reminded of, isn't it? Especially in this today's busy world. I'm going to put all the links that to the book, but also I want to put links to you as well, Heidi, in the show notes. Where can people find you?
Oh, definitely LinkedIn and Facebook. They're my go-to social media platforms. I don't do TikTok and Twitter and Insta and things like that. I'm a bit of a heathen there. I've got my website, which I love my website, but I'm told it's a Marmite website, so I'll be interested to hear what other people think on that. But yeah, they're my three sort of main platforms. Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll put all the links again in the show notes, so you can go find and follow and connect with Heidi wherever she is, which is fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure nattering and having some time to have a proper chat. So thank you so much. I was just thinking that we chat over a coffee about all the stuff, but we've probably never had this deep conversation before, but it's really lovely. It's been really, really lovely. So thank you so much, and go connect with Heidi, and I'll see you soon.
Take care.